Welcome to the P.R.A.Y presentation on the Unit Religious Emblems Coordinator. Where do we start? What do we do? My name is Deb Hazelwood. I'm part of the P.R.A.Y staff and I'm hosting the webinar tonight. Before we begin, we want to take a look at what's on the screen. You'll see that you have the viewer window as well as the control panel, and we want to highlight just a couple buttons on that control panel. The next screen shows the arrow. This is where you can type in a question and submit it for our question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Feel free to type a question and submit it throughout the presentation. You're all muted, but by entering a question in the box there, feel free to do that throughout the presentation, though we'll pause at the very end. And then the final button would be the arrow that would hide that control panel and the button to go from a viewer window to full screen. So adjust the screen the way you want it, and let's begin. Our presenter tonight is Chip Turner. He is the Director of Communication and Training of P.R.A.Y. And he holds a lot of other positions within BSA, but the one thing that we need to mention is he is the chair of the National BSA Religious Relationships. And so Chip has a lot to say on this topic, and we're excited that he's here. Chip?
Well, thank you very much, Deb. I am really glad to be here. It's been a while since we've communicated with some of you folks. I thank you for joining us tonight. And we are going to take a fresh new look at the Unit Religious Emblems Coordinator. Several things have happened. If you happen to have been a viewer, either live or by recorded method of our earlier webinar on the Unit Religious Emblems Coordinator, nothing has been reversed or changed from that standpoint, but there are some new developments. So thank you for joining us. And I, first of all, would like to remind you that if you are, or even if you're thinking about serving as a religious emblems coordinator for the unit, or maybe you're looking for one and just want to get some more information, the unit religious emblems coordinator is a key member of two teams. The first one is your unit's committee, whether that's the PAC committee or troop, or team, crew, or ship. You are an important part of that team and a regular participant. We'll talk specifically about those responsibilities in a few moments. But the second thing is that you are a part of the Religious Emblems Coordinator team. And now our picture is complete. When we first started, if you've been following us for quite some time, we simply had the Council Religious Emblems Coordinator and the District Religious Emblems Coordinator with the accompanying patches. And tonight we're going to actually give you the number of how to order a patch or get them on order from your scout shop, or how you can get them with the SKU number. So that's an added little bonus for this evening. So first of all, you are an important member of the team, a contributing member of both of those teams. So if it's a PAC committee, for instance, you should be actually attending those meetings and reminding people about religious emblems and how they can be completed. And then in order for the council and the district religious emblem coordinators to fulfill their responsibilities, they need to know who you are and they need to hear from you. So first of all, a member of two teams. And then secondly, I would suggest to you that to prepare fully for this, you simply need to follow the Scout motto of be prepared. I want to talk about some resources tonight that are available to you, and also about your responsibilities, and then finally a plan of action. If you viewed our earlier webinar on this, much of this is the same, but it's good for us to review from time to time. So those are really focal points for tonight: to know about the resources, and there are a few new resources, to understand your responsibility, and then develop a plan. One of the resources is on the scouting.org website that I would encourage you to visit. And I would remind you that this presentation will be on the P.R.A.Y website, so you can check back if you don't get all of this down. But scouting.org is a place that has a lot of information that will help you. For instance, there is a clickable chart that shows the current religious emblems that are available. And as you would suppose, the Unit Religious Emblems Coordinator does need to know where to find information on all the various religious emblems. There may be some people who are a little hesitant to serve because they say, well, I don't know about all the emblems. Well, you don't really have to know about all the emblems. You simply have to know where to get that information. So as you see on the screen, there is a clickable chart. And you can click on that and get more information at that location. And if you do that, here's just an example of one of them. If you happen to click on African Methodist Episcopal and the Cub Scout level, there you will see what that emblem is called, is God in Me, and how you can actually get information, how you can order materials and so forth. And that's for every single religious emblem at that website on the clickable chart. Then there's reference to the Duty to God program information. And that chart is a printed form, among other things, is a printed form of the material we are talking about. The latest edition of that is the 2012 printing. Those are available from the local Scout Service Center, and if they do not have them, they are able to order them. They are periodically updated, so we'll have all the correct information on there. So the Duty to God program information is a flyer that has a picture of all the emblems and the location of how to get additional information. And there it is. If you're wondering what I was talking about, that's the Duty to God brochure. And as you can see, these are some of the pages from it. There's an illustration of each one of the emblems as well as the place to find about it and some other information. There are frequently asked questions too. Many of the questions would be the same. People wonder about the basics of, you know, how do I get started? Well, for instance, here are some examples. What's the Religious Emblems Program? A common observation about it. I have a unit with children of all different faiths. How can I include them, the Emblems Program for my unit? Lots of information there. So the frequently asked questions is a good place to start. I would suggest that you read over these and you would be surprised how many of the questions that you may have just in the entry level could be answered right there. Now we're still on that same website, same page. You can click on how to get started. That's really kind of the crux of what we're talking about, how to get started. So I did want to share those with you very briefly, and this comes straight from that page. Might look just a little different, but these are the suggestions. So let's look at them for just a moment. Obviously, the youth members must obtain the specific booklet for their religion. How do you find that out? Back to the Duty to God brochure. It has all that information with phone numbers and email addresses and regular mail addresses. So they need the specific booklet for their religion. You can check with the Council Service Center, the Council Store, the Scout Shop, or the religious organization directly to get those materials, and that's all on that brochure. That each youth member needs his or her own copy of the materials to document progress, not just one booklet that is photocopied. You don't do that. Every person needs their own booklet in a printed form, and so you get those in hand, and those may be secured, as we've said earlier, and many of them can be secured at the Scout Shop or certainly over the internet or by calling. Now, number 4 says that some religions offer adult manuals for counselors and mentors. Many of them do. Number 5, parents review the program guidelines. Please don't overlook this important step. We want the family involved, understand what the youth are going to be involved in, and many times the parents are the ones that are really eager to get the youth involved in the first place. Number 6, some programs require participants to be official members of the religious institution. If you're not very familiar with the Religious Emblems Program, you need to be aware that though the Religious Relationships Committee of the Boy Scouts does review each of these programs, they are not reviewing them for theological content, more for the conformity to BSA uniforming guidelines and the fact that they'd be similar to other religious emblems. It is the faith groups that write the materials. So if the faith group has in their material that you have to be official members of the religious institution, your first inclination might be to think, well, why do the Boy Scouts require it for this one and not the other one? It's not the Boy Scouts that are doing that, it's the faith group. So that is their option. Number 7, age and grade requirements vary from program to program. Some programs, for instance, take the Protestant material. There are programs for younger cubs and tiger cubs, older cubs and webelos, as well as Boy Scout and either older Boy Scout or venturing. The Catholics have a similar level to their materials. Yet some of the others maybe have one just for Cub Scouts and just for Boy Scouts. But that'll be shown on the form, on the brochure, and also we'll tell you how that relates to the various faith groups. And then finally, each program sets its own guidelines as to who may serve as a counselor. I always say that if you can get the clergy involved to serve as counselors, they will find that very enriching. If they've never done it before, they might be a little bit hesitant, but once they look at the materials, they'll see they're very self-explanatory, and they will have the wonderful experience of getting to know some of the children and youth in their church even better, and their families. There are some of the programs that allow parents or family members to be involved as counselors. And as we mentioned earlier, there's also the possibility in a number of the programs for a person to serve as a mentor. Then number 9, families should talk to their religious leaders and show them the booklets before beginning the program. This is extremely important, particularly if this is a program that's targeted more toward the parents or some other counselor leading the material. We don't want the disappointment of getting to the end and realizing that the clergy wanted to be more involved or did not understand what was involved. So make sure that they actually see the materials early on. Then most programs require that they be completed under the auspices of that particular religious organization. So if a child is of a certain faith, most of the materials require that they be done under that faith organization. Also, many programs require the signature of the local religious leader, whether they actually served as the counselor or not. So be aware that that final step in the process is important and it's likely to be called for. So if you've already familiarize the clergy with material and solve their involvement, this will not be a problem. Obviously, number 12, the youth member needs to complete the requirements, get those signatures, and follow the instructions to order the emblem. Now, number 13 sometimes is misunderstood. People may find the religious emblems materials in their local scout shop, and then they're surprised to find out the medals are not actually there. Well, the medals are not carried at the scout shop. They are administered by the various faith groups, and it's important that you understand that and leave plenty of time in ordering them if you have a special presentation ceremony, which is what number 14 relates to. Make it a special occasion when the young person is honored. This makes them feel special. It helps them realize that they've done something important. It helps the religious institution realize that duty to God is an important part of scouting as well. Oftentimes, units will and individuals will work toward completing the materials so that they might receive them on Scout Sunday or Scout Sabbath. So that's not a requirement, but that is a nice kind of timing to be working toward. So that's how to get started. There's a lot of steps, but it's really quite simple. We're still on the same page. The suggestion is to watch the Religious Emblems Coordinator informational video, the REC video. That is another one of those things. You may simply click on that and go straight to the video. We're not going to play that tonight, but be aware that is another resource that can be of use in the entire process. Then there are additional resources available, and you click that, you'll find some of those. One of those happens to be praypub.org. /REC for Religious Emblems Coordinator, but you'll find those by simply clicking on that. So there is a great resource to be familiar with, knowing your resources. Now I want to introduce you to one. If you watched this course earlier, participated earlier, this is a new one. It's praypub.org /UREC for Unit Religious Emblems Coordinator. That is a new page that has been added. And this is where I wanted to tell you that the patch, at long last, the Unit Religious Emblems Coordinator patch is about to be available. And you might want to grab a pen and paper and write down that call it a SKU number, SKU, and it's 618744. Those patches are to be available if you're listening to this before July 5. That's upcoming, or it should be available after that if you are listening after. But it's SKU number 618744, and you can actually contact your Scout shop and ask if they will place some of those on order. They might not even be aware yet that they're coming out. Brand new. This is going to be very exciting. People will be very glad to see it. And on this page is the Unit Religious Emblems Coordinator, a list of resources. And I simply want to point that out. You somehow found out about this this webinar, and perhaps it was from this page or some other source, but you see a couple of webinars related to this. The next one in this series will be working with other religious emblem coordinators at the unit, district, and council levels. So that's an opportunity. And then it's clickable to take you to the Learning Center to learn about other resources, and you can also visit the Religious Emblems Coordinator orientation page for some other items. So that's new. It's the PRAYPub.org/UREC page. That was the third one, and this was on earlier broadcast, PRAYPub.org/REC for Religious Emblems Coordinator. That will have a number of items that are applicable to one or more of the Religious Emblems Coordinator positions. Be familiar with the P.R.A.Y Learning Center as one of those. And what is that? That's a series of resources to help you understand your job as a Religious Emblems Coordinator, or as a parent supporting material, or just learning more about religious emblems in general. So by clicking on that page, you'll find there are webinars, workshops, and tutorial videos that are updated all the time. So knowing about that could be very useful to you. We do periodic special newsletters, and we're doing electronic announcements at the moment, but you can see a variety of those listed that are available just simply for you to request. Maybe you'd like to have the Duty to God Religious Emblems Resource DVD. Much of that is on the website, and you don't necessarily need to order the DVD, but there's the opportunity for you to do so on that page. If you do click on that, you'll find out how you can actually download the video and have your own copy there instantly. In the upper right corner, you see what the cover for that DVD looks like if you happen to be searching for it. We're going to talk about that design more in a minute and really what that stands for. And you can also sign up for any of the newsletters, including the email bulletin that comes out from time to telling you about new information that is available. And that's all we're asking for, is the simplest of information. We simply want to be able to get it to you in a timely fashion. Also, we have an REC, Religious Emblems Coordinator, presence on Facebook. That just has some basic information. If we have a new announcement, we'll post, now that we've announced it on this webinar, we'll post the SKU number for the new patch. And you can see all sorts of things on that Facebook page. It looks like that, or it has been looking like that, now that we have all of our REC patches that are now available, or soon will be. We'll change that and put that patch design. But that's a quick look at the Facebook page. Just another way of supporting what you're doing. There's some other REC position resources you can see there. Some of those, one of my favorites is the Religious Emblems Retreat Guide, because that enables, whether it's at the district or council level, or you can even, I suppose, do some of that at the unit level. You can certainly support and encourage your district or council to do a Religious Emblems Retreat. And at that event, you can actually have a number of religious emblems being done at the same time. I think it's probably been obvious, and we have referenced it, but it would be important again to say, if you're the unit religious emblems coordinator, we're not asking you to teach all these religious emblems. We're asking you to be available, to be encouraging, to participate in the unit meetings, the unit committee meetings, and just be aware of any available opportunities to complete religious emblems or help parents and scouts learn where to get them. So those are some of the resources here, just a few little snippets from that particular special edition on religious emblem camps and retreats. You can actually see some suggestions of how people have made different patches, some of the outlines of their programming and the like. That's all available right there for selecting that. There are a variety of Duty to God promotion resources. It gives you an opportunity to think through how could I maybe do a little special feature at a PAC meeting, for instance, or a meeting of parents. There are all sorts of suggestions there, scripts, PowerPoints, roundtable orientations. It's kind of a potpourri, as many would say in Louisiana. It's a cafeteria that you can choose what it is that you need for the moment to fulfill your position. And then I hope that you are familiar with the Duty to God patch program. Kids like patches, adults like patches, and a number of years ago, P.R.A.Y started this Duty to God promotion patch. I think it's important to understand that though P.R.A.Y does produce it, it is not limited to the emblems that P.R.A.Y happens to distribute. This is usable for any of the programs that the Scouts might get involved with. The idea is over a period of 4 years they can receive each of the 4 patches. It's a very simple approach to reminding Scouts about religious emblems programs. And as you can see on the screen, really the requirements to get one of those 4 segments, to attend or make a presentation on religious emblems, and to make a commitment to duty to God. That is not completing a program, it's simply learning about the program. And if they'll do that over the course of 4 years, they'll have the entire duty to God set. It's a great resource to promote. I think unit religious emblems coordinators particularly would find this a useful tool. And the good thing about it, since there are not requirements or you have to complete some long list of requirements to submit it, you can actually order these patches in advance and have them ready for the presentation. So know about that patch program. Knowing your resources. Okay, we've looked at 3 of those already, and then a 4th one I would suggest to you is there are a number of faith-specific websites. I've just put these on here. There are many, many others, but just as a suggestion to give you an idea, there's a Catholic site, the Protestant materials, Jewish, Islamic, many, many others. And simply by having in hand the Duty to God brochure that we referenced earlier, you can find a listing of all of those. So if you have a question about a specific one, you're able to find it there. Well, those are some of the resources. I would like to think that you think, well, if I'm still thinking about what I can do, you should be convinced by now that there are many resources. Our desire is not to overwhelm you, it's to give you many from which to choose to meet your situation. So know about your resources and then understand the responsibilities that were being asked of you. Let's begin by just understanding a little bit about the purpose of the whole religious emblems coordinator positions, regardless of which level that, because all of them have something in common, whether it's the council, the district, or the unit. And that's to encourage the youth to earn the religious emblems of their faith and to promote religious emblems like BSA promotes other youth advancement. And I don't want to go over that one too quickly. I'll let that soak in. To promote religious emblems usage like the BSA promotes other youth advancement. I can tell you that there are ongoing studies to make sure that we do help our Scouts not only recognize their duty to country and their other responsibilities, but the fact that duty to God is a bedrock foundation of Scouting. And you'll be seeing more about that in the next few months. That's really all I can say about it, but that will underscore more the idea of promoting religious emblems like you promote other forms of youth advancement. So that helps Scouts and parents understand it's an important part of the program, even though they are actually prepared by the faith groups. And then finally, to establish goals and track the number of religious emblems to be completed every year. Without goals, we're certainly likely to meet them. We need goals so that we can strive toward stretch and, in fact, involve, because our goal is not numbers, it's positively impacted lives. And so don't forget some of the whys of religious emblems. Involvement makes, in whatever religious emblem, makes a positive difference in the lives of those Scouts and families. And we know that religious emblems reinforce Scouting's values. also improve relationships with religious chartered. We're in this together. And finally, to establish relationships with potential religious charter partners and others. There may be religious and volunteers in the congregations of your community that would love to be supportive of such a plan. They've just never been asked. This gives you an opportunity to do that, to establish that relationship with some of those potential folks. Now, what are the responsibilities specifically of the unit religious emblems coordinator? That's the topic of our discussion tonight, is the unit religious emblems coordinator. So I want to spend a few moments specifically on that. The first one I've already mentioned, but cannot be emphasized too much, and that is to serve as a member of the unit committee. What does that mean? Well, you don't need an invitation to attend the regular meetings of the unit committee. That's something that you ought to be planning to do. So as they're planning, as they're assessing, as they're meeting monthly, hopefully, you'll be a part of that. And then you're keeping the religious emblems program before the committee, and also helping them to know about any completion rates up to that point of the religious emblems. And then to encourage the nomination of adults for religious recognitions offered by many of the faith groups. That's a responsibility that unfortunately has been missed, I think, in times past in many Scout units, because they're either not aware of those recognitions or no one is as the point person to be looking out for that and encouraging that the units recognize adults who are making important contributions to the religious education of Scouts, and they're very active in their faith. So that's one of the things you can do while you're serving as a member of the unit committee, is to have in your calendar to periodically make a presentation and raise the question about adult religious recognitions. Not the same as the youth, but a recognition of adults being involved in support of religious emblems, and discipleship is one term I suppose we could use as well. So the second, we served as a member of the committee. Then the second thing, we're going to acquaint the youth with religious emblems programs and that are available from their faith group. I'm convinced this is one of the primary reasons that we don't have more religious emblems being pursued, is the Scouts simply don't know about them, or if they do know about them, they don't know how to get information. So this is at the very heart of your responsibility, to acquaint these young people with what's available. How do you know how to do that? Very simple. Go back to the Duty to God brochure that you should have in hand. How can you do it? Well, exhibits, posters, progress charts, all of those. Really, the sky is the limit. There should be something up in the meeting room for the unit, so that they're constantly reminded about religious emblems. Provide that information regularly on religious emblems to the Scouts, and work with unit leadership to plan presentations at PAC meetings, den meetings, meetings of the troop, patrols, crews, and so forth. In other words, not all the time, but at a regular basis, remind the Scouts and the leaders about religious emblems. That will increase usage tremendously, and you can be assured by doing so you've made a positive impact upon youth. Now, a third thing is to provide the families and the clergy an orientation, which ultimately ends in encouraging their involvement. Why do you do this? A lot of the same reason as making regular announcements and calling the attention to the Scouts themselves. The lack of familiarity is one of the big reasons why there are not more religious emblems presented. So you can have a huge impact on the lives of Scouts and their families simply by introducing them to the appropriate religious emblems of their faith. So plan those presentations several times a year. Maybe it's just a 2 or 3 minute presentation at the Blue and Gold banquet, or the Court of Honor for the Troop. There are many, many ways of doing that. And then if your unit is affiliated with a faith-based organization, meet with the clergy and provide them with counselor materials. I would also say that this observation that some people have the mistaken belief that only faith-based units would have a religious emblems coordinator. That is not accurate. We encourage every unit to have a unit religious emblems coordinator. But if it does happen to be a faith-based unit, you certainly want the clergy from that faith-based organization to know about the materials and to be supportive. Number 4, urge all the youth in the unit to earn religious emblems of their faith. That'll become easier as kids get involved. Know about those emblems, and when they see that other scouts are earning them, that will in fact increase usage. Here again, we're not concerned with just numbers for numbers' sake. We're concerned about possibly impacted lives, and that happens as scouts are involved in the religious emblems program. A 5th responsibility is to disseminate information to the scouts and scouters about district or council religious emblems activities, retreats, camps, and so forth, as well as any congregations that may be offering classes that are open to other participants. This is an important responsibility because if councils and districts are encouraged to provide these sorts of activities, then we need to make sure people are there to participate. And if we build participation, they'll want to make them available more often. And these are done in retreat settings, in camp settings, and in class settings, many ways. But to know about those, one of the responsibilities will certainly be, and we'll talk a little more about that in a moment, but to be one of those that is in contact with your district religious emblems coordinator so that you'll know what in fact is happening. So regular communication is critical of that. Just also watching for local announcements, using email, getting on email lists that might be related to that, and other ways that you can help raise awareness and that you can become aware of opportunities to share with the unit. So if there's somebody out there on the lookout for new opportunities for the scouts to pursue the emblems through a class or special setting, you are that person. And we know that that will make a difference in the usage of the emblems for sure. Now, number 6, promote religious emblems usage like BSA promotes other youth advancement. Does that sound familiar? Well, it should, because that was one of the key points about all religious emblems coordinators. That is particularly true at the unit level. And the more that is done, the more familiarity there is, then the more involvement there will be, the more enthusiasm, and the more of those that are in fact earned. So as I mentioned earlier, courts of honor, blue and gold banquets, many kinds of things like that are ways of promoting religious emblems usage. And set up events attended by parents. Now when I say an exhibit, it does not have to be elaborate. And perhaps you have one of the Duty to God brochures that you simply could cut apart and put those pages on a poster and have it just as a background as the folks come in for a special event, banquet. Maybe there's a bulletin board that your scout unit has access to in the meeting of your chartered organization. So when I say exhibits, they can be quite involved. There are a number of sources from P.R.A.Y, for instance, charts and posters and things, but whatever it is, be creative and set up those exhibits. So don't let the word exhibit frighten you. It doesn't mean that it has to be a highly involved thing. It is a visual reminder of an important involvement. A 7th, and that is to coordinate the establishment of goals and track the number of religious emblems completed. As I said earlier, we're not in this just for numbers' sake, but we realize that numbers do represent the number of young people who are involved in the program and that are being helped. So it is important to have goals, and they're only useful if you track the completions. I suggest some sort of progress toward goal, poster, display board, or so forth, and to share the unit goals and results with the district religious emblems coordinator. They will need your input, as the council religious emblems coordinator needs the input of the district to set council goals so that they're realistic and you can celebrate the achievement of them. And then serve as the unit's liaison to the district religious emblems coordinator. This should not be a time-consuming involvement at all, simply maintaining contact and have a two-way communication with the district religious emblems coordinator. Well, yes, as the religious emblems coordinator, you should be prepared. You should know your resources, and we've given you a lot of them. You should understand your responsibilities, and hopefully we've made that clear. And then you should develop a plan of action. There is more than one plan of action. The plan that you pursue will be the one that's most appropriate for your unit, your location, the time of year, and so forth. So do plan on one. And I'm going to share one with you now. It is not the plan of action. It is just a plan of action. And you can find more information on this at the praypub.org/REC website or the UREC page. Both of those have more information. But here's a suggestion, and if you saw this earlier presentation, I've kept that the same intentionally so that you realize that there are some constants. So here's the plan, or here is a plan. And I've used just a hand, 5 fingers to illustrate the process and to remember it. First of those would be to organize. You got to enlist the unit religious emblems coordinator, and hopefully that is you, or at least someone you've identified. That person needs to understand the value of religious emblems and committed to increasing usage. Now that, when I say the value, that shouldn't be frightening in the least. It's simply you understand the value, and work with the committee to do those things about recognize, promoting, tracking, and serve as a key leader for education. Educating your scouts, educating your parents, and educating the clergy. So that's a basic, simple step. Organize. So after you organize, we want to strategize. Set a religious emblems completion goal for the unit. You might be surprised at how quickly people will respond to that. I was aware of a council not long ago that set a rather simple goal. They really never thought about how many religious emblems to do in the council. They thought it was a pretty ambitious goal, and I suppose it was, but they readily met it by simply promoting and making it an important part of the strategy. So know what the opportunities are out there for completing religious emblems. There will be more of them if people will take advantage of them. Encourage clergy to offer religious emblems classes. We find clergy, when they do get involved at that level, they get enthused about scouting, they get enthused about religious emblems, and about the scouts involved in the program. So also know, as you're doing this planning and creating the strategy, that there are going to be certain seasons of the year that lend themselves to religious emblem studies. I think I mentioned earlier the idea that maybe completing that by Scout Sunday or Scout Sabbath in February. That's not the only time, but if you were to do that, you certainly need to begin that in the fall so you'd have plenty of time to complete, to wrap it up, get the materials, and have them available for presentation in early February. But that's just one cycle. It certainly does not have to follow that cycle, but it's a very, very popular one. So if you're going to organize and strategize, then you mobilize. So equip and energize the UREC, that's you perhaps, with local training as well as online via the sites that we've already talked about. You're seeing some of that now. There's much more of it. I encourage you at your own leisure to go back and look at those things. The references on the Boy Scouts of America site, on the P.R.A.Y site, and on others. You'll find inspiration, suggestions, illustrations, and the like. Interact with other URECs. This is a new position. So there will be a lot of people saying, well, I don't know how to do this. Well, what a great thing to do is to learn how to do it together. And we would also invite, if you have suggestions, if you have questions, if you try something you think, well, that really worked even better than I thought it would, we'd encourage you to go to the praypub.org website and let us know about that, because we would like to be a center of communication, so to speak, to help you in improving the usage of religious emblems. So regardless of the faith group, if you have religious emblems, let us know how you're doing them and what works, because it will also probably work for others. And involve scouts, involve your chaplain aides, other scouts, unit chaplains, parents, clergy, others, all in the process as you're mobilizing to make a difference. And you can be assured that you are making a difference. Then you have to visualize. Be creative in visualizing progress toward the goals. You need to know what the goals are, and you need to know how you're doing and progressing toward the completion of that, and then have those set up in high traffic areas. I offer just a couple of illustrations here. They're very simple, but here's just kind of a generic emblem idea where you see that as you progress toward 100% of your goal, you fill more and more color into the ribbon holding the medal. That's just a rough idea, and as it goes up and even over the top, kids will follow that with excitement, as will parents. It doesn't have to be that, though. It could be a thermometer, it could be a fuel gauge, it can be a clock, it can be a simple pie chart, it can be a fuel gauge, anything that measures completion and percentages of completion. So the thermometer with a movable the little red part there, you can use some ribbon and slide it up as you reach toward the goal. I'm sure you have many and better ideas than these. These are just thought starters as you think about that. And then finally, advertise. Use every tool to educate and motivate folks. Many units have newsletters of some sorts. More and more are going to websites. If you have a faith-based unit, the congregation related to the unit would likely have mail-outs, orders of worship, websites, and the like. Make sure you're advertising at the courts of honor and special events, and certainly any print and electronic media that may be at your disposal. And so publicize religious emblem completions in the scout units as well as the congregations. Faith-based units will be very encouraged to know that the duty to God aspect is in fact being taught in the unit that they are providing, and that the faith needs of the scouts, regardless of their faith, are being met or addressed by helping getting involved in the religious emblems program. And pays to advertise. We talk about advertise. Wear the patch. Here again is the number, the SKU number, 618-744. Make a note. Check with your scout shop. Ask them if it's after July the 5th, they should have them in hand. But even now, you could say, I am a unit religious emblems coordinator. I understand that the number for the unit religious emblems coordinator patch is 618-744, and I'd like to be put on a list to be notified when those come in. If people ask for the patches, they will order them. So it pays to advertise, and when you there will be some who will not understand this patch and the fact that there's just one single patch. This is a little bit of a departure from what has been done in the past, but there will be more of these coming down the line that will kind of break the mold of what has happened, because if you happen to be very involved in Cub Scouting, for instance, you're accustomed to most of the adult recognition or position patches having a blue background. But that will not be the case this time. There's one unit religious emblems coordinator patch, regardless of the program. And there may be somebody out there that says, well, that's not right for our level. It is right. There's just one patch. And so you'll be kind of one of those people, a trendsetter, so to speak. So if you're in a program that uses other color schemes, your patch will really show out. It is official. Don't worry about that. If you're a unit religious emblems coordinator, that is your patch, and it does pay to advertise. So please do so. Now, we've got plenty of time for some questions that I'm going to check in a moment, see if anybody has typed them in. If you haven't, now would be a really good time to do that, because I want to answer one question first of all. And while I'm doing that, if you have not already typed in a question and you have one, please do so. We'll take a look at that in a moment. But let's start with this one, because this has been asked on a number of occasions. Does the unit religious emblems coordinator replace the position of chaplain in a scout unit? Well, the answer to that is simple. It's two letters, no, N-O. Both positions are needed. And if you'll look in the latest edition of the Handbook for Chaplains and Chaplain Aides and Boy Scout Troops Adventuring, that's Adventure Cruise, that's a mouthful, but that's the name of the little booklet. There is where you may find a copy of it online, and number 5 deals directly with religious emblems. If you are a chaplain, chaplain aide, encourage scouts and adventurers, Cub Scouts, so to participate in the religious emblem program of their respective faith. That is an assignment to the chaplain and chaplain aide. But of course, it's also obviously a part of the unit religious emblems coordinator. That is where the two intersect. But other than that, the responsibility is very different. However, both of you should definitely have spiritual welfare of your scouts in mind, and so this makes a great team effort. But don't feel like that this eliminates the need for chaplains and chaplain aid. In my opinion, frankly, strengthens the need for that. So that is the answer to that question, no. Now let's see if we have any questions here. Deb, do you see any questions up to this point?
No, Chip, I think your presentation has been crystal clear.
Well, either that or they're all asleep.
Wake up, everybody.
But, yeah, well, I'm very excited that we're at this point in the process, because we have been anxiously awaiting the arrival of the Unit Religious Emblem Coordinator patch.
Yes.
Because you know, when you have a patch, it just says this is for real, and it is for real. And we were hoping to actually premiere them at the national annual meeting, but things do go awry on occasion.
Right.
But there are a couple of those patches, you know, in existence. I do not have one of them, but I have seen it, and but there are going to be a bazillion of them, as one of my kids used to say, eventually. And maybe you'll be the first one in your council to wear one, and I guarantee you, if you like attention, you'll get it, because people will say, "What is that?" What a great opportunity.
So, yeah, I see no questions, so
Well,
we'll just remind everybody that we will post the PowerPoint and the recording online.
right.
And Chip, any closing comments?
Well, I would just say, as you see on the screen here, we hope you will regularly visit this site at P.R.A.Y.pub.org and our Learning Center, because we are trying to provide the latest live as well as previously recorded materials that you can use for training yourself, for training coworkers, and suggestions on how to promote. So please help spread the word. And if you are listening live tonight and you think, "Oh, I wish so-and-so had watched that," it will be available tomorrow, and then they may also be able to watch it after the fact, pre-recorded. But we're here to serve you, and we hope that you feel like that P.R.A.Y.pub.org is a site you can go to and get information to support whatever religious emblem that you're working with, and certainly as the Unit Religious Emblems Coordinator, all of the religious emblems. So we thank you very much for participating and hope you will join us again real soon.